All right, the second thing in the third section of Chapter 3 is to think about the idea of tautology, which is a logically true claim. It's true no matter how the world is composed. Let's go ahead and note that over here. Tautology, logically true. Maybe a weird concept, but certain things. Here's a basic one. P or not P. If you think about that for a minute, logically that's true. It doesn't matter what P stands for, and correspondingly it doesn't matter how the world's made up, because how the world's made up determines whether or not any given claim P, I don't know, pigs fly, is true. Self-contradiction, basic would be a claim that's logically false, and a claim that would be logically false, the basic, clear, more obvious claim would be P and not P. For an and claim to be true, both parts have to be true, and the two parts here are opposite one another. They will always have opposite truth values based on what not means. Contingency, my basic claim would be like P, for example. And notice that P could stand for anything, like, to take our example before, pigs fly. That's contingent. It depends on how the world's made up and what can fly and what can't, and so on and so forth. Claim could be silly, it could be absurd. You might even claim it's far from being true, although that's, it's unclear what exactly that means. But it's only if its logical structure makes it false that a claim would be a self-contradiction. Let's take a look at this first claim. What we do is do a truth table for a given claim. I'm going to analyze this claim here and try to figure out whether or not it's a tautology, a self-contradiction, or a contingency first. The only possible input combinations are cases 1 through 4, where case 1, P and Q are both true, case 2, P true with Q false, case 3, P false with Q2, and so on. So I put in those different possibilities. That's assuming nothing about what P and Q mean, assuming nothing about how the world's made up or what's true of the world. Instead, we're looking at all the options. So let's go ahead and do that. If we find out that in every case the claim is true, that would mean it's a tautology. If in every case it was false, it would be a self-contradiction. Otherwise, it'll be a contingency. Any basic claim without any logical operators must be a contingency. All right, so we just substitute in the truth values for P and Q, both true. Notice, interestingly, here I got P and Q are true, so true if and only if true in the parentheses is true. My main operator here, the operator I do last, is or, so I'm going to have true or something else. That's got to be true. If I'm going to write it out, and sometimes this is useful, as I said in the previous clip, on the left I'm going to have true. On the right I'm going to have false. Actually, P is true, Q is true, so I'll have true if and only if false. Right expression in parentheses is false. Doesn't change the fact that the whole claim is true. All right, this time substituting the truth values, do it in your head. On the left, I'm going to get false because I have true if and only if false. On the right, I'm going to have true. I'll have true if and only if true once I negate that Q there, which I have to do first according to how negation in parentheses work. So that claim is going to be true. In the third case, I'm going to have false on the left, false if and only if true. And on the right, I'm going to have true. That's going to be false if and only if false, which is true. So perhaps you see a pattern, but it could obviously turn out like in the standard OR operation that we, in our first three cases, get true and wind up with a different determination in the fourth. In this case, though, I got P and Q both false, making my left disjunct, we can call it. Left expression of an OR total claim. It's going to make it true flat out, and now we can see that the claim above is a tautology. Probably wasn't obvious, but you think through some of the operators in parentheses, you might see that. Okay, moving on here, I have if Q then P, and it's not the case that if Q then P. Alright, so entering the cases here, sometimes you can think about it, you may know what this is going to be. P and Q are both true in this case, so the left expression in parentheses if Q then P is true. It's not the case that if Q then P, we already did if Q then P, that was true. Negate that and we get false. And again, that's a hint here as to what's going to come out. We have true and false, which is false. You may not know though, you go through the details. Alright, if P then Q, notice here we got to be careful about the order. It gives us F horseshoe T, which is true. Horseshoe if then is only false when the antecedent, the left part, is true, and the consequent of then part is false. This time though, on the right, we're going to have negation of if Q then P. If Q then P is true, for the same reason given, so the expression on the right of the and, the right conjunct, is false, making the whole expression false. Okay, continuing to plug in here, I'm going to have T horseshoe F on the left, which is false. On the right, I'm going to have negation of T horseshoe F, which is true. That didn't matter though. As soon as the first part of the and was false, the whole thing is false. Finally here, I'm going to have F horseshoe F, which is true. And then negation of F horseshoe F. F horseshoe F is true, so negation true is false. Whole expression is false. We can now see that the expression in parentheses if Q then P, and it's not the case that if Q then P. When you read that, think about what was just said. Yeah, that's a contradiction. Can't be true. Doesn't matter what inputs we put in there. Just the logical structure makes that false. Okay, I have a partial chart here for this claim. What we're trying to do now is analyze if P or not R, then not Q. Trying to figure out whether or not that is a tautology, self-contradiction, or a contingency. Since we have three different claims, P, Q, and R, we have three different variables or sentence letters, proposition letters here. So we have a lot more options. If you go back to the old case, I have P and Q. We had 4 cases where P and Q are both true. Now look at cases 1 and 2. I have 2 cases where P and Q are both true, and I need to break it up to where R is true and R is false. Similarly, cases 3 and 4 is an expansion of case 2 before, where P is true and Q is false. We need to break that down into where R is true and R is false. We're going to get all the cases we had before doubled, corresponding to the idea that R can either be true or false. Okay, so you can read across the 3 cases. Take a look. Case 1, for example, is where P, Q, and R are all true. Case 2, where P and Q are true, R is false. Go down here to case 6, that's where P is false, Q is true, R is false. Case 7, we get P and Q both false and R true. Alright, then we just go in and do the calculations. This time the expression in parentheses, notice that I have a large if-then. If-then is the main operator. The expression in parentheses, the left side or antecedent of the if-then, in this case is going to be true, simply in virtue of P being true. Not R is actually false. Okay, not Q here is going to be false because Q is true, so I have T horseshoe F, which is false. And just continue then at this point. I guess at this point, or I should say certainly at this point, we do not have a tautology, but it might be a self-contradiction or a contingency. It could be either one of those two. All right, continuing here. I have P true, R is false, so not R is true, so that's going to be true or true on the left, which is true. On the right, I'm going to have false again. Q is also true in case 2, so I have T horseshoe F. Expression is false in this case. Moving on to case 3, I have, calculate it yourself, P true and R true, so that's going to be true or false. Expression in parentheses here, though, still going to be true. Okay, not Q in this case is going to be true. I have Q false here, so I'm going to have T horseshoe T. Expression is true. At this point, we already know that we have a contingency. All right, let's make that arrow better to the claim right here. Why? There's a way it can be false, either case 1 or case 2. There's a way it could be true, case 3. Okay, in case you want to follow along and listen for a minute, I'm going to go ahead and do a couple more cases here before wrapping this up. All right, case 3. P is true. Expression parentheses got to be true. Q is true here. T horseshoe T, that's true.